Welcome all. We call this meeting to order, and Mr. Duhaney, I understand we have another magnificent update from Richmond.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we are going to be joined today by Brent McKenzie, who's live and in action in Richmond, Virginia. He's going to come and give City Council an overview of where we are with this legislative session with our General Assembly. So Brent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be with you again this afternoon. We're going to follow a similar format as you've probably seen the last couple of weeks, including most of the same bills as we're still kind of battling a lot of the same issues. It's that time in the legislative session where tensions are really high and tempers are pretty hot, and on some pieces of legislation that look pretty inevitable, we're looking to try and find amendments and some substitutes and some changes that we can make some of these pieces of legislation better and more livable as we continue to work them through the system here. So lots going on. Andrew, you could go to the next slide for me. So we're in the last 2 weeks of legislative session. We're supposed to go to Sine Die next Saturday. Our legislative agenda is I had a bit of a rough week in some ways. Our cancer screening bill just this morning was carried over to 2027 in Senate Finance. They said they would look to find some dollars in the budget. We'll see what happens there. But there's also this pilot program that is taking place out of Fairfax County that is supposed to report later this year some results on some cancer screening programs they've been running up there. And so they've decided to kind of wait to see what the results were from that pilot program before they create a permanent program and fully fund it. So that was disappointing this morning, but as I mentioned, we'll continue to work to try and find some dollars in the budget for that. Similarly, our EMS Board for Life funding legislation was continued in Senate Finance. They had done the same thing to the Senate version. Typically when they do that, they stick with the same result. That's kind of what happened there. Our HB 390 passed the Senate with a substitute, just some technical changes, and now that's headed back over to the House, where we're hopeful they will accept those changes, and that will then go to the governor. If they reject the changes, then it'll go to conference. So we'll continue to work on that legislation. As we've mentioned the last couple of weeks, our 10-1 election system legislation has all been successful. Governor Spanberger has until March 5th to take action on the Senate versions of those bills as those hit her desk last week. So we're waiting on her action on those pieces of legislation. So these are our legislation with fiscal impact that we've been talking about with you guys. We're not really expecting a whole lot of resolution on these until the very end. Most of these will head to conference as they have different pieces in the House and the Senate have different versions. And so we're not anticipating a lot of resolution till the end on these. The collective bargaining bill in the House passed Commerce and Labor and was sent back over to Finance. Just a typical process, what we would expect to see. Delegate Fagan's bill dealing with prevailing wage, same thing, passed out of Commerce and Labor, was sent to Finance. The legislation that requires paid sick leave passed Commerce and Labor and is headed to the floor. And then the legislation that would create a paid family leave program passed Senate Finance and is headed to the floor there. So lots of movement, but nothing that isn't what we expected on this. Similarly, the pieces of legislation that carry some revenue streams that all the local governments are following, skill games legislation continues to move forward. They're hoping to get those to be in the same format and same language so they don't head to conference. We'll see if they're successful on that. The cannabis legislation, I think is going to do the opposite. And I think it will head to conference committee as they try to iron out some of the differences there, dealing with some zoning authority. And I think the tax structure is a little different. It's just some technicalities they got to work out there. And then we haven't seen any movement so far on the House version of the local sales tax for school construction. As you'll remember, I was telling you guys last week, the Senate version of that bill was rejected, but they put the language in the budget. So although a lot of the local governments have been working to try to get the legislation passed that has some of the better language in there that would allow you to do use those dollars should a locality choose to be able to use those on debt services rather than just on future school construction payments. So like trying to get them to make sure that it provides maximum flexibility for local governments. Land use legislation was a bit of a mixed bag yet again this week. The first bills there, they call this the housing target bills. This is legislation that would have required every local government to increase their housing stock by 1.5% over 5 years. Those pieces of legislation were finally put to rest this week. Unfortunately, though, we did see positive movement on a piece of legislation that would require ADUs in certain single-family homes, or allow them by right rather than giving the localities the choice. And similarly, these bills, HB 816, SB 454, the patrons call these housing near jobs. And so what this legislation would do is, in its original format, it would have required every locality to designate 75% of all of their commercial properties as being available to for multifamily residential housing by right. We have made a ton of amendments to this legislation. The Delegate Helmer and Senator Van Valkenburg have been very gracious to work with on these pieces of legislation. We've got that 75% down to 50%. We've got a carve out for our AQs district. We have what I think is a carve out for some of the blue line issues. Waiting on our friends in planning to make sure that it does what I think it does. And so that legislation is a perfect example of something that we don't particularly love. We've been kind of working against, but working with the legislators, and we've made it tremendously better than where it started from. And we'll continue to work on that throughout the process. Those pieces of legislation may be headed to conference. They may be trying to mirror up the language so it doesn't get there, but we'll see. Opposite of that, though, is HB 1279 and SB 388, the faith in housing legislation. This is legislation that would allow any property owned by a religious organization or a 501c3 to develop their property as affordable housing. 60% of the units would have to be affordable housing, which on the surface of it and by theory sounds great, but it takes away all of our zoning authority. As we all know, many of the churches in Virginia Beach are right smack dab in our neighborhoods, and this would allow them to increase the density at a very high level, would allow them to build the housing at 45 feet, which like a typical ranch house is about 10 to 15 feet, two-story house is 20 to 25 feet. So you're talking about a lot more density and a lot more impacts on neighborhoods. So we're trying to work on these pieces of legislation. We haven't had a lot of success on those yet. And then the last one here is a nice piece of compromise legislation as well. This legislation, and there were two pieces of legislation that were introduced dealing with parking requirements and how localities can deal with them. One would have completely eliminated our ability to set parking limits. That legislation was set aside, but this one is still alive. This would allow localities to, or would limit localities' ability to set parking limits in designated areas where there are transit stations and high density. So it's a much better version than the original. And we think this is going to be the compromise bill that probably winds up passing. And then my last slide here, some of these we've talked about a little bit. There's a couple pieces here on e-bikes, that legislation that would create the e-bike task force at the state level. It is now headed to the governor, which is really great news. Legislation that would allow a locality to require children 14 years and younger to have to wear protective helmets for motorized scooters and motorized skateboards. That legislation passed out of committee and is now headed to the floor, so that's really good news. So that's the kind of e-bike stuff. You'll remember last week I told you about a bill that would have required localities to use a .gov domain for cybersecurity reasons. So for cybersecurity reasons, there were a bunch of pluses there, but it would have had a pretty big fiscal impact to require us to transfer over all of that technology. That legislation would continue to next session. The legislator wasn't particularly happy about that outcome, so this legislation will definitely be back, and he's looking for us to provide some additional data on what the cost would be. He's not exactly buying everything that we were selling on what that fiscal impact would be. So we'll work over the off season to make sure he gets that information and try and work with him to make that legislation more palatable. And then the last one I'll leave you with here, the HJ 28, the HRT work group that reported out of Senate Finance this morning is now headed to the Senate floor. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any questions or comments.
Okay, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer, and thank you, Mr. McKenzie, for the update. I just have concern at page 6, House Bill 816, all of the land use bills, but House Bill 816 and Senate Bill 454, just a clarification, when you say 75% of land and now perhaps 50% of all land, is that unimproved or is that improved? Like a shopping center,
would be,
is that?
Yeah, 50% of any commercial properties and commercial or business zoned properties. So improved or unimproved.
So a
We
shopping
would
center.
get
A shopping center that has a parking lot and all the shops are leased, we now have to look at all of our inventory of all of our improved and unimproved and look and find 50% for residential use.
we would have to designate it as being available for residential use. The owner would still have to want to do that.
Okay.
It wouldn't force them to do that, but it would make it available to them.
Wow, that's a hard one for me to get and I think everyone knows where I am on this. I mean, we all need affordable, attainable workforce housing, but some of these are really interesting bills. I'll put it that way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Okay, Josh.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Brent. So just following, I'm sure there's a lot left to be unanswered so far with that one that Worth was talking about, but with the STRs, this is requiring a locality to include in its zoning ordinance for accessory dwelling units. So when would something like that be effective? And then thinking ahead, like would it be timely for us to consider such a thing alongside, plenty of community engagement otherwise when we do the zoning ordinance update, or would we have to kind of get in front of that process based on whatever timing that may, come out of something like this if it were to pass?
It does have, I have to go back and double check, but I'm fairly certain it has a delayed enactment date. So as you know, most pieces of legislation, when they pass the General Assembly, take effect on July 1st. Oftentimes they'll put in a delayed enactment so that whoever it's impacting has time to deal with it. I'll have to double check. I know like the housing near jobs bills, those have a 1-year delayed enactment. The parking one has a delayed enactment. I'm fairly certain the ADU one does as well. So we would have some, I'm pretty sure we would have some time to work through any issues that we might have to prepare for that.
Okay, and I wanted to acknowledge in my own mind, I misspoke and said STR when I meant ADU, but so I don't want anybody to get up on that. But
and I will point out there is if that is a concern, there is There is a clause in the ADU legislation that says it can't be used for an STR. They have to be rented out for more than 30 days at a time. So that was a bit of concession that we got.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because, I mean, it's a conversation worth having, but I think it's a conversation worth having with community alongside engagement and, in connection with, the process that we know the zoning ordinance update will be. So thank you.
Yeah, and I will also say that with that legislation, one of the other concessions we did get out of it was that they would still have to get like an application, and there would be a process. It wouldn't just be, they could just go out in their backyard and start building. So there are some protections and some ability for us to control what happens there. It's just not a pure local option anymore as it is today. It's requiring us to allow some consideration for it. So it's not as bad as the original version, or not as challenging as the original version, I guess I should say, depending on your perspective. But it's, it's certainly a continuation of erosion of local land use authority, which all of these pieces of legislation, they all do.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Okay, Brett, thank you for doing some tremendous work up there. I know it's a contact sport these days, but we got the right person up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Okay, we're going to go into liaison reports and discussion. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and get things rolling. Once again, politics is like cliff diving sometimes. And parking is a key priority that we have in the city, especially at the oceanfront areas. And I had a long discussions, with the manager about the possibility of holding back on implementing the increases at the convention center and sports center for a number of reasons. And I think a lot of it has to do with timing. Part of the timing, there's a couple major reasons that, led me to this. Right now, there's some ambiguity on how of the effects of what's happening up in Richmond are going to not only affect the city, but the individual, taxpayer, cost of living and things of that nature. And the other thing is we're in the process of doing the budget ourselves. Let me put it this way, there's financial implications, in the future that we're just not aware of. The other thing is too, concurrently in April is really going to be, really a big season coming up now that the Dome is open, the surf park is open, the restaurants are open, and residents are going to be living out there. And, the garages are still not up to, real operational speed yet. And I really think that, before we go to a broad brush, trying to implement a broad parking thing, let's focus on, Atlantic Park, coming up. And because once again, when you think about maybe 5,000 people looking for parking spaces, and then the surf park and the restaurants and things of that nature, I think, we want to make sure that we get this right. And I think it would be prudent to really surgically look at that and instead of a broad spectrum. And the other thing is Rosemary's oceanfront residential is taking thing. Let's see how that goes. Make sure that that's implicated. Get the bugs out of that, and who knows, maybe that can also transfer over to the the parking at the convention center. Rosemary?
I think that's fine. One of the problems is we have a huge shortage of parking in that central convention center area. And that was the reason we're doing this. But at the same time, we've got an RFP for a new parking garage.
Yep.
And I don't think the story has been told of why the money was needed. And the money is needed for this new parking garage that's going to eventually be built, because I'm When I tell people a parking spot costs in a garage $35,000.
45.
Is it 45? I mean,
Is that
it's,
correct? Yeah.
it's a lot. $35,000 to $45,000 a parking spot. And people are just stunned by that. And we've got to have more because, as you know, we've had people towed because there's just not enough parking. They park in the wrong places, and then that creates a lot of havoc. So I think once we decide about the parking garage, and people know the fiscal impact, because it has to pay for itself.
Yeah.
It has to pay for itself. Then we can talk some more about parking down there, so that the public will understand that to be able to park, you have to have a place to park. And there is a cost to that. So I'm fine with us waiting because I don't think the public has a good understanding. But with the new parking garage, once it's decided who's going to build it, what it's going to cost,
Yeah.
that might be a good time to sort of get back to the discussion.
Oh, without question. And I was going to mention the 19th Street garage, but I think, the purpose, of a strategic delay is to give ourselves the ability to communicate, as Rosemary was saying, with the stakeholders, to come up with an operational plan that would really, really, truly, be effective. And, but once again, I think, just kind of piecemealing it and, trying to be over ambitious right now. I think that, if we wait a bit and we get the determination about the overall parking strategy, which we're going to do on Main Street, or maybe some other things, and, field testing, the residential, I just think it would be prudent to see the big picture. Stacy?
Yeah, I don't disagree with delaying the implementation while we work out some of the kinks and see how some of these other items are going to affect what we're doing. But at the same time, we've all received a number of emails from people that were really upset about the implementation of a parking fee down at the convention center, saying that it's not fair to have to pay for parking. Well, as a city, we offer a lot of things for our citizens that are free or well below cost. And not everybody in the city takes advantage or gets to take advantage of those opportunities. So, again, I think it's fair to transfer some of the cost of providing these services to the people that use them and take that burden, take 100% of that burden off of the homeowners who are now subsidizing a lot of these services. Our free parking for an event is not common throughout our country. It's not common throughout our region. And we've been offering it. And there are a lot of people that come from out of town, from out of the area, that use these parking spaces for free. And that's just not the norm. And the people, our homeowners, are subsidizing that. And again, even the people that live within the city who are using those spots, they're being subsidized by the other homeowners. And I don't think it's unfair to charge for parking at all. I think it's very common and ordinary. And what we have proposed is only to pay for the parking, as the vice mayor said. The cost of a parking spot is somewhere between $35,000 or $45,000 a spot, and that's not including the maintenance. So, I don't think we need to abandon the idea. I don't have any objection to looking at how we implement it, but I think it's a necessary thing that we're doing, and I think it's only fair that the people that are using those types of services are paying for those types of services.
Stacy, let me put it this way. I agree. But once again, like I said, think timing is everything. And it's also, as we get our operational plan, and once we make a firm decision on 19th Street, once we get the residential parking program debugged and everything, I think then we have time to make a compelling case to the stakeholders about the rationale, what we're doing. Because once again, free parking has always been a thing at Town Center. We have free parking, and we had a meeting, Amelia and I just the other day with some of the residents down there about the fee that they pay for it. It's a very tough emotional situation. But once again, it's just kind of talking to people. And the other day, I went to an event, and on the way home, I stopped at McDonald's to get a burger and fries for my wife. And a gentleman was at the kiosk right next to me. He said, "Mr. Mayor," he goes, "I'm a volleyball referee at this center and everything, and all of a sudden this fee just popped up and things of that nature." So I think folks like that, and there was another lady that sent an email, that she goes to the Veterans Memorial and everything. I think a lot of times when we implement, something that's going to cost something, we have the duty and the obligation, to explain to them. And I think once we have a broader perspective of the plan about what kind of garage we're going to need and things of that nature, we'll go in well armed. And I concur with you. Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the discussion and the decision. I support it, but I think Stacy's right. I mean, we have to look at this. These fees, I think, were also to help us maintain the current parking places there. And there are a lot of parking spaces there around both the sports and convention center. So I like the discussion. We need to have it, but let's hear from the stakeholders, as you said, because some employees who work at the oceanfront park at the convention center. So we have to take everything into account.
No, I'll tell you what, parking is going to be one of our biggest challenges. Let me put it this way, our success, creates, other necessities, and parking is going to be one of them. As I say, when we talk about a sold out concert hall, and then, people using the surf park, the restaurants, and people living there. And then what happens currently at the sports center and the convention center when they have events going on, that's an inconvenience. And, the thing is, we have to, I think we all agree we're going to have to aggressively address this situation. But once again, I think if we have a well-planned, sequence, once we have more information about, the cost of the garage that we're going to put up, and also assessment of needs, who knows, there might be another need for another garage out there. That's a possibility too. Josh?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what's been said on all sides of the equation. And I know, we all get inquiries from residents about cost of services, and something that strikes me along the lines of what you were saying is parking is an enterprise fund, and enterprise funds like public utilities and other services, core city services, the charges are meant to pay for the costs to deliver the service. And these are not profit centers for us. They are meant to pay for the people that are doing the work and the work that they do. So I don't know that most people think about it quite like that, but it's probably pretty expensive to maintain and build parking garages, especially in a city that is by the ocean. So thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
Okay, Patrick.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like for LG to come in and just kind of give City Council an update on some of the things that we've been working to improve in the oceanfront area, and just to let Council know that technically we can absorb it for another year, right? So if Council wants to defer this to January or February, we can make it work. We have made some enhancements because, as you all know, parking is sometimes a nightmare in that area when we have multiple events kicking off at the Dome, Atlantic Park, and the Sports Center, the Convention Center. So we have used the Parking Enterprise Fund to make some enhancements to help navigate some of the confusion that's created whenever we're tremendously packed there. And we could absorb that in the Parking Enterprise Fund for now. And I think as Council makes a decision on what to do with 19 and Parks, we could then kind of get a sense of where and how best to deploy charging for parking there. So we can possibly go for a period of time. So I think probably deferring it for the next January or next April is something that we can kind of work towards. But LJ, can you give City Council just a quick synopsis of some of the things that we're doing in that area?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Since council directed us to move in this direction, both with the changes at the Convention Center and Sports Center and with the resident voucher program, the parking staff have been hard at work. And in large part, they're really kind of taking what we were doing from an infrastructure standpoint and rebuilding a lot of that with much more flexible software and some hardware that's going to allow us to monitor some of what we're doing. We have already issued some contracts to vendors to install some hardware at the Sports Center Convention Center, and that work is ongoing. We're through design. Materials have been purchased, and they'll be getting installed in the next couple of weeks in anticipation of the April 1st date. As the manager said, we can certainly delay that, if there's a time. I think one of the really great things about this hardware that's going to go in, though, is it'll allow us the opportunity to see what's happening in the parking lot, both real time and to be able to come back and give you all an understanding of exactly how many weekends a year are we pushed to the max, how many weekdays do we see issues. I know there have been a lot of questions as it relates to, activities such as volleyball at the Sports Center, helping us to understand what the behaviors are. And understanding those behaviors will help us to make good decisions about fees as we move forward. So I think this is certainly something that, I know this is certainly something that we can accommodate. I think when we, as we decide to move forward, we'll be able to do so with a lot more information as a result of the work that staff have been putting in and will continue to put in as we move forward. But there will still be changes out here regardless of what we're doing because we've already started down that road.
Well, it's a very complicated process, and it's better to, instead of go broad brush, get it debugged. And so this way, when it does spread to other parts of the city, it's, a lot of times when you're debugging, it's better to keep a small contained area first, and that way, when you do expand it out, it'll be less burdensome.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Okay, at this point, does anybody object to us, putting this thing on hold for a while? Yeah.
I think we should, once we make a decision on the 19th in Park Garage, we should start this discussion again.
Yes, that's a good idea. Okay, and then we can set a time, but at least let's get through this summer season first.
Just wanted
Yes.
to mention, we're going to go ahead and let the public know about that delay because we have been receiving lots of, mothers and their kids and sports.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just looked at Ally, and we're going to work to get some information out to the public, and obviously the media is going to pick this up as well and ask us some questions, so we'll work to get some information out.
Stacy, hello. Good. Okay. Hello. Welcome. The next thing I'd like to bring up, last Saturday, the city of Virginia Beach lost a dear friend, Barry Knight. And I think, it was tough on all of us. It was tough on the city. It was tough on the Commonwealth of Virginia. They lost a true champion. And, I'd just like to, if anybody wants to bring up a thought or reflection, at this point, I'm going to invite you to do so. Anybody?
Well, I attended, and I was very pleased how well it went. And having Senator Step also help with the coordination. And I heard they had 8 governors there. That's a lot. Of the former governors and so forth, we saw a few. But it was very well done. He is a good man, and we'll remember him.
Okay, Barbara, and then Rosemary.
Well, of course, Barry served a long time, but I think he had a lot of talents, but I think his uniqueness as being the lone farmer in the General Assembly, to be able to speak for agriculture and to really know what he was talking about, with agriculture being the largest industry in the state, he really played an important role. and he did a wonderful job, and we're going to have a hard time replacing that background because there are not very many people who have it. So that's something that we're going to have to be mindful of, that we're going to be not having that expertise that we need to make up. But he did a great job.
Yeah, he always bragged about being a proud hog farmer, always. Rosemary.
In fact, he would say, I'm just a hog farmer. Losing Barry has been really hard on me. He was very special to me, and we worked on a lot of things together. And before he became the House of Delegates, I had appointed him to the Planning Commission, where he got his political start, so to speak. He really did a lot for the state, but he did a lot for the city. He was always there trying to help us wherever he could. And even when he wasn't well, he was still trying to help with the Blue Line Charter Bill, with the Nemo Church. And those are the last few things that he was able to try to do something with this last. I mean, everybody's replaceable, but he's one of those people that really will be irreplaceable. And I miss him with all my heart. And I'm struggling a little bit with it because he was really, really special. And I know with the whole Nemo Parkway 7B, when it was being delayed, you know, I called Barry and I said, Barry, what can we do to try to get, it's costing time, and it's a safety issue, and it's a national security issue. And so he got on the phone immediately and started making phone calls with people in the federal government and all that. And I think he's got it on something that's called SPEED, S-P-E-E-D, to get it going faster. So he always cared no matter what it was you called him about. So we're going to miss him.
Yeah, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I would just add very briefly that I feel very privileged to have had the chance to know him and to collaborate with him and to work with him as a citizen and as a council member. Barry was one of a kind. They don't make him like that anymore. He was a true statesman. He was widely respected by Republicans and Democrats and independents for his ability to cut to the core of an issue, to find resolution, build consensus, to bring people to the table around a common sense approach to the issues that we all face. He was pragmatic, sharp, and he was caring. And I learned a lot about that from attending his funeral, the types of relationships and connections that he fostered all across the spectrum. It didn't matter who you were or what you did. Barry cared. And I think that our discourse is diminished because of his absence, and we will miss I know I will miss his many contributions to public life. And I'm also grateful for the kindness that he showed to me and the friendship that he extended toward me, as long as I ever knew him.
No, Barry was indeed a likable guy, and, you know, whether it be the Beltway or in any, you know, state assembly, you know, I think we need more of that bipartisan, you know, reach across the line and figure out what you have more in common than when you have dividing them. And, you know, the world will be a better place with more Barry nights in it.
I want to say one last thing for the public, that, as you all know, I'm very much into the historical and so forth, and in the African-American area. And I was up there talking with him, because Bob had also worked with that one-room schoolhouse. And I saw him in the hall, and he says, I've just sent $25,000 to help. So many people don't know that he helped also with the things for the African American. Redo that place, right? Right. Oh, I should say that.
That's great. Okay, and any other liaison or discussions at all today? Rosemary and then Stacy.
Well, and this may have already been thought of and taken care of, but I wasn't sure, so I thought I would throw it out. With the Building 14 closing, and there won't be any satellite voting there moving forward, there's really no place in that part of the city for the satellite voting. I think the closest thing would be SeaTac Rec Center. So I think we really need to make sure that there is a satellite location for that part down in this part of the city. Maybe the Prince Anne Rec Center might make it an excellent spot. But we need to put some thought on it because every time we turn around, there's an election going on. So, thank you.
Okay, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see, this Sunday, in the Virginia Pilot, there was a guest editorial that was written by State Senator Angelina Williams-Graves, and it has to do with housing affordability. It's a subject that I'm very passionate about, as you all know, and she put it so eloquently and so succinctly that I just wanted to read some of the highlights from that and give everyone a copy, because I'm not trying to tell you how to think or think the way I think or think the way she thinks. I'm just saying that I think she makes some incredible points that again, I took to heart. And Virginia's acknowledged what many of us already know. The real challenge is that we simply do not have enough housing to meet demand. In Norfolk and across Hampton Roads, single-family rentals are part of the broader housing ecosystem. Families at different life stages need different options. Teachers, shipyard workers, nurses, first responders, young professionals, and retirees all deserve access to safe, stable housing that fits their circumstances. Limiting supply of any kind only tightens competition and increases pressure on prices. If we are serious about lowering costs, we must address the root cause, a supply shortage. Decades of restrictive zoning, slow permitting processes, and regulatory hurdles have constrained construction. When development is slowed by restrictions or other barriers, the added costs don't disappear. They are passed along to home buyers and renters, making it harder for everyday families to manage the cost of living. To improve affordability in a meaningful way, we should focus on encouraging more responsible investment and reducing obstacles that prevent new housing from being built. In today's housing economy, demand continues to rise, where production has not kept pace. Economists estimate that if pre-2000 building trends had continued, millions more homes would have exist nationwide today. That shortfall has real consequences for working families, limiting options and putting continued pressures on prices. As a legislator, I believe our focus should be clear. Expand supply across the spectrum. Single-family houses, townhomes, duplexes, apartments, and responsibly built to rent communities all play a role. That means modernizing zoning, streamlining approvals, and equipping localities with tools to add housing where it makes sense. It means encouraging responsible investment that produces new homes, not discouraging with broad policies that reduce options. The truth is simple. Virginia does not have enough housing. The work before us is to build more wisely, responsible, and at scale. If we want the Commonwealth to remain competitive, welcoming, and accessible to working families, we must commit to practical data-driven solutions. I will continue to advocate for policies rooted in evidence, not emotion, policies that expand opportunity and strengthen our communities. I agree with every single word she said, and I see the same challenge, especially here in Virginia Beach, exists throughout the whole Commonwealth. See us take
have
it on.
copies?
I do have copies for everyone.
She's a realtor too.
She is a realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Stacy, let me just say I appreciate that. I guess it was around 2 years ago, Governor Youngkin had a meeting at the convention center, and about 1,100 people came from throughout the Commonwealth talking about the housing crisis. The housing crisis is not unique to Virginia Beach nor Virginia. It's a national and somewhat international crisis that's going on. And, the point is that, we often get criticized, for pushing housing, politically and things of that nature. The thing is, we are responding to a demand. You know, ever since I've been elected to city council back in 2004, we always heard about the brain drain, about, you know, kids graduating from universities and can't find a job here. But, you know, companies won't come here unless there's housing, you know, for their employees. And, you know, what the housing does, it also creates, new housing creates new revenue sources. That really helps, you know, with the mill rate for, you know, keeping it, you know, within reason. And, but once again, people don't, you know, I think have to understand that even though you build a high-end house, that it creates a vacancy in another house that is really kind of worth it. And then once again, with the regulatory costs that are involved and everything now, a starter home is around $450,000. So, but once again, this is a crisis, and thanks for bringing it up. We have to deal with it and deal with it aggressively. Work.
Just want to add on, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Stacy, for reading this, because this is really, truly, I mean, a bipartisan issue. It's an economic development issue, it's a workforce issue, and it's a cost issue. But I think I've seen or heard where we, the city of Virginia Beach, are lacking 2,000 units. Not sure of that number, don't go to the bank on that one, but we're lacking that. The other thing I wanted to mention, we did have a presentation last week on the comprehensive plan, so this big part of the comp plan is this aspect of it. But the Weldon Cooper Center, I believe, this past week came out with an update on population trends, and the trend in Virginia Beach is getting better, but we still lost people over the past year. Stat that I'm not too proud to announce, but again, it's a national flight to the exurbs, as I continue to say, but we are losing people, and we need to build more units, single-family houses, condos, apartments, all the above, to help economic development as well as the taxes.
And, you know, let me reiterate another thing. You know, when I was at the Pentagon a couple of years ago, every undersecretary or assistant secretary of defense from all the branches said that housing and daycare were key elements to military readiness in terms of recruitment and retention. And I can tell you a lot of the projects that some people consider controversial, be assured that the Navy is in favor of, because they need housing. And then my counterpart in Newport News, you know, Mayor Jones, you know, fellow Marine, they have to find increased housing because the Chief of Naval Operations don't want sailors living on ships when they're in dry dock. They want them in the community. You know, living on ship, they had a number of suicides and things of that nature. And the other thing is Portsmouth, the Naval Yard in Newport News is looking for 5,000 new workers because we are woefully behind in shipbuilding. So, but once again, you know, it's not just Virginia Beach, but, you know, Stacy's, thanks for bringing this forward. Okay, any other comment? Okay, ready for the agenda.
We have 7 items on the agenda. Anybody have any issues with doing them all? Y'all go on consent.
That's it. Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by Section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings of staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating, litigating posture of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A7, and that's City of Virginia Beach versus LDSM et al. And public contract discussions of the award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms and scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A29, and that is Tolliver Road. Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Lucci.
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Roll Salmon.
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
10 to 0.
Okay, we are recessed into close. Welcome one, welcome all. I call this meeting to order. And if you are willing and able, please stand for the invocation. Heavenly Father, you are always with us and beside us. Please be with us this evening as we consider the affairs of our great city. Give us the patience to listen, the wisdom to decide, and the strength to act. Amen. And if we may have a moment of silence for all of those who have paid the ultimate price to protect our city. Thank you. And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. All present excluding Councilmember Hutchison.
Okay, thank you. Have a motion to certify the closed session?
Second.
Okay, I'll open the vote.
1 second. The vote is open. By a vote of 10 to 0, you've certified the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the informal and formal sessions of February 17th, 2026, and the special formal session of February 24th of 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, open the vote.
1 second. The vote is open. By a vote of 10 to 0, you approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay, thank you. And this is the point where we have a presentation honoring those who deserve honors. And I'm going to ask my friend and Vice Mayor, Rosemary Wilson, to please go ahead and read.
I'd be delighted. Would the Ramblers like to come up to the podium?
You can bring them
Come
all.
on up, folks.
Come on down. The price is right.
Not a whole shooting match. Come on. There we go. Come on.
Yeah, everybody. We want to see our.
That is one trophy.
Woo-hoo.
Hardware.
Wow, look at that. Oh, my goodness.
That's a football even I might be able to catch.
Oh,
Oh, welcome everybody. How
We are-
y'all doing?
we're so glad you're here with us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Rosemary.
Okay. Whereas the Ramblers Youth Football Organization is a program that has become a cornerstone of youth development in Virginia Beach. And whereas the Ramblers officially became part of America Youth Football in January 2019, and since that time, the organization has grown tremendously and now serves over 250 children, ranging from baby flag through 12U. I guess, anyway, the mission of the Ramblers has always been to provide instruction, discipline, and positive mentorship while keeping our youth active, engaged, and on the right path. And whereas the Ramblers, an organization, was founded by Rodney White and his brother Richard Jameson, who named the team after their former school in Washington, D.C., known as the Eastern Ramblers. What began as a vision rooted in brotherhood and community, was later established there in Virginia Beach, where it continues to impact families across the city. And whereas, tragically, Mr. Richard Jameson passed away on July 21st, 2025, his legacy, dedication, and love for the youth lives on through the organization he helped build. In honor of his contributions, the Division II Ramblers consisted of 17 determined young athletes dedicated their season to his memory. And whereas these young men traveled to Naples, Florida, where they fought with heart, discipline, and unity, finishing the season undefeated with a perfect 17-0 record. And and earning the title of AYFN National Champions. This historic achievement marks the first national championship for Virginia Beach for over 7 years, with last occurring in 2018. And whereas the team was led by an exceptional coaching staff who exemplified the leadership with both on and off the field. Head coach Lewis Skinner, Coach Ronte Johnson, Coach Cornelius Johnson, Coach Cordell Norvell, Coach Osini Maxwell, Coach Rickwan McMiller. Whereas throughout the season, the coaching and helped guide the team to incredibly 383 total points, while instilling discipline, teamwork, confidence, and accountability to each child. And whereas beyond the wins and statistics, the Ramblers represent hope, resilience, and opportunity. Many of the athletes face challenging life circumstances, and this program provides them with the mentorship, structure, and a positive outlet that reinforces the belief that there is more to. It's a very nice long resolution to life, and that success is achievable through hard work and dedication. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the City Council, with individually and collectively, to extend their heartfelt congratulations and commendations to the Ramblers Youth Football Organization community for their outstanding dedication, presentation, partnerships, and success with and on and off the field. Go Ramblers.
Mayor.
Given by.
Mayor, I just want to say something. Let me see your rings. That's right.
Hang on. Would you like to say
We got
something?
something for you, hang in.
And would you like to come up and speak while we're coming down to you?
Yes. On behalf of the 7U Ramblers and our organization, our parents, our coaches, our kids, our community, we would like to thank you all for your recognition for us and having us here in this time. And thank you.
Sweet.
Shift you guys this way just a little bit. Shift you guys this way just a little bit. Forget all the big guys in the back here. Slide this way just a little. Just a little. I'm ready to do it a few times. You guys ready? Looking here first. Get all the parents' photos. 1, 2, 3. We're smiling. We're smiling. Nice job. Keep that smile. There you go. All right, one more time. Let's see it off. All right, we're smiling. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, now show me those rings. Yeah. There we go. Keep smiling. There we go. Keep smiling. Keep smiling. Love that. Nice job. Thank you. That's right. Congratulations. Okay, go Ramblers. Good stuff. You grab.
Parents, get in there.
Mr. Mayor, one more. We have students coming away.
Sorry.
No, this is cool. You have her positions. There we go. 1, 2, 3. We're smiling. Perfect.
That was cute.
Yeah. Giving them out.
Yeah. What about those people?
Wish I had this for the picture.
These things are heavy.
I finally got one. It only took 75 years.
For a ring?
All right. Okay. And my friend, Councilmember Rouse, you have some introductions this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have so many wonderful folks in our gallery this evening, and I want to have the ladies from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated to please stand and be recognized. As we are winding down Black History Month and making our way into Women's History Month, we have some representatives from the Virginia Beach Alumni Chapter. So this is a group that was chartered in April 18th, 1982, and this distinguished chapter has served as a pillar of leadership, scholarship, sisterhood, and public service in our city. Through impactful programming, their work is guided by the sorority's 5-point programmatic themes: economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement. This dedicated chapter has 175 members who meet critical needs in our city and in our community, including youth mentorship, scholarship, civic engagement advocacy, which is part of why they've joined us here this evening. And this chapter, the Virginia Beach Alumni Chapter, exemplifies what it means to lead with purpose and serve with excellence. It's worth noting that today is the 113th anniversary of the Women's Suffrage March, Delta Sigma Theta's first act of public service. So they are continuing that service by being here with us this evening. So thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to recognize them in the gallery today.
Thank you. And Jennifer, if you don't mind, I'm going to add on. One of the things we have a point of pride of at Virginia Beach is that we're recognized as being the most caring city in this great nation. And it's folks like you that just exemplify what we are about, community service and what you do. over time and what you're going to continue to do, I say sincerely say thank you and God bless you for what you do. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearings. The first one is the lease of city property for agricultural purposes, approximately 23 acres off Newbridge Road to Dolly Family Farms, LLC, approximately 68 acres off Indian River Road to Dolly Family Farms, LLC, and approximately 457 acres off North Landing Road to Land of Promises Farms Partnership. Do we have any speakers?
No speakers on any of those.
Okay, we will move on to the next, and that is acquisition by agreement or condemnation, Centerville Park Turnpike Phase 2, Project CIP 100057, 2-409, 100451, 5-251, and 100452, 6556. Any speakers?
No speakers, sir.
Okay. And then we have number 3, acquisition by agreement or condemnation, Lynn Haven River Basin Ecosystem Restoration Project, Phase 2, Wetland Construction, CIP 100263.
No speakers, sir.
Okay, thank you. And, Councilmember Green, we got something going in District 7, Centerville 2. You got it. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any speakers?
No, sir.
Okay, if you would be so kind.
Yes, and the ordinance's resolution, number 1 is the ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement with Lumos Telephone LLC for 2 strands of dark fiber in the city's communications network. Number 2 is the ordinance to approve and adopt the revised city council policy for council member sponsored forums and events. Number 3 is the ordinance to amend the city code section 2-3.1 to boards and commissions attendance policy. Number 4 is the resolution to authorize and direct the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement to the Hampton Roads Regional Groundwater Mitigation Program. Number 5 is the ordinance to accept and appropriate $720,472.93 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, VDEM, to the FY 2025-26 Emergency Communications and Citizen Services Operating Budget, the 911 infrastructure updates. Number 6 is the ordinance to accept and appropriate $5,250 from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Services to the FY 2025-26 Human Services Operating Budget, additional training opportunities. Number 7 is the ordinance to transfer $725,981 from vacancy savings to the general fund for the FY 2025-26 voter registration elections operating budget rate special election. That was April 21st, 2026. Move to approve.
Okay, second? Second. All right, any discussion? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Councilmember Ross, thank you. By a vote of 10-0, you've approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wilson.
Okay, great. At this point, do we have any appointments?
We do, Mr. Mayor. The Human Rights Commission to appoint LaTanya Robertson. The Military Economic Development Advisory Committee to appoint Richard Barkus. The Oceana Land Use Conformity Committee to appoint Captain Rob Littman. Move to approve.
No.
The vote is open.
All right. Here we go.
Mrs. Rouse, may I have your... Thank you. By a vote of 10-0, you have appointed those as read by Vice Mayor Wilson.
Okay, at this point, any unfinished business? Any new business? Okay, we are adjourned. Open mic.